I'm Rachel Buckman, the Education Associate at Sefaria, and with me today is Lizzie Frankel, our Communications and Marketing Associate. We're so excited to have you with us as we take a tour of Sefaria. What we will be doing is we would like it if you have questions to type them in the chat, and periodically throughout the webinar, I will be stopping and then Lizzie will be asking questions for that section at that time. If there are people who would like to stay on at the end for additional questions, I have time, so I'm happy to do that for you. So that's enough of introductions. Let's jump into it. At Sefaria, we're building an extensive library of Jewish texts and the tools to go with it. We've been around for about 7 years, and we keep growing. In fact, Sefaria has recently been visited by approximately 460,000 individual users a month. And that's a big jump from where we have been before. Of course, during these times of the pandemic and people are home, we've become even more indispensable. Today, we're going to go on a guided tour of Sefaria, including the basics, features you may not have been aware of, and our newest features that have recently been added. So I think even if you are a pretty experienced Sefaria user, if you hang on till the end, you're still going to find something new because we have a very new feature that I'm very excited to show you. I want to note here that although we're going to be talking about Sefaria source sheets and where you can find them, we are not covering in this webinar how to create them because that's a whole separate webinar in and of itself, which we do give periodically. We gave one last Sunday. If there's interest, we certainly will be giving more in the future. Also, we record our webinars. So on our YouTube channel, we have previous sheets webinars, and Lizzie's going to put the link in the chat. So if you'd like to watch that at another time, that's available for you too. And my last part of introduction is that I invite you to play along if you'd like on your own devices as we take this tour. I'm going to be working on the website. If you're on the app, things will look a little bit different, and every so often there'll be a difference between the two, which I'll point out. And of course, like I know when I take webinars and do computer kinds of things, it all makes a lot of sense when I'm sitting there listening to the person who knows how to use it. And then when I sit in front of the computer, all of a sudden it goes blank. So when that happens, as we certainly expect that it will, we have a couple places that you can get help. One is that we're going to be recording this webinar and we will be sending it to you with the sheet. We'll add it to this sheet and then we'll send that to everybody. Also, we have a helpline, hello@sefaria.org, where you can ask any sort of Sefaria questions that you might have. And we also, and there's a link here at the bottom of our source sheet, we also have a FAQ group that will take you to a collection of sheets that explain things. And so there's lots of different ways that you can get help. And this is just the beginning of your Sefaria journey. I won't be able to cover it all here, but if you're interested in a follow-up, you can also write that in the chat and we'll see what we can do. So let's jump into Sefaria. So I'm on the English website. We also have a Hebrew website. This one is www.sefaria.org. And the Hebrew one is www.sefaria.org.il. If you are on the Hebrew one, everything will be flipped. So everything that I say is on the left will be on the right. And that's the way it goes. So, so here is the page of Sefaria. This is what we call the library page. And we're going to start out with finding a text and then seeing what we can do with it. So on every single page in the top left, you will see a search bar. And it has a little magnifying glass and it says search. And if I know the text that I'm looking for, I can click on it. I can type in Hebrew or in English. I can, if I don't have Hebrew on my computer, I have this little icon to the right that is a screen. I can click on here to type. I can put the source in and see what happens. So let's start with the first verse of this week's Torah reading. Let's start with Genesis 2519. I happen to know exactly what I'm looking for. I type it in, I press enter, and there I am, 2519. You can see that in Hebrew, it has the name of the Torah portion, Toldot. And let's talk a little bit about the layout here, because you're going to have options on how you would like to view it. So this is a bilingual text. It has Hebrew and it has English. It's the layout of it is what we call stacked, where we have Hebrew on the top, English on the bottom. If we want to make changes to that, we have this button. This is again on every single page in our library. We have an called the A Aleph button, and this has to do with our layout. So if I click on it, I now can choose the language. It's clicked with the A Aleph, that's bilingual. If I want an only English, if I want an only Hebrew text, I can click on it. So there we have, now we have only English. Now this is not translating. This only works if we have an English text. It is just choosing how we're viewing it. So if you are in the A text and it's only coming up Hebrew, there's not a problem with your computer. It just means that we do not have that text translated. We have more texts that are in Hebrew than are in translation, and that has to do with copyrights. Maimonides' copyright ran out a long time ago, but his translators might not have. So we do have more texts in Hebrew than in English, but we have all the biggies we have in both. I can have it also in only Hebrew. I'm going to put it back in bilingual, and I can choose how I want the layout. So stacked is what I had before. I can have it side by side with the Hebrew on the left or the Hebrew on the right. So this is what that looks like. So it really is up to me how I prefer to view the text, and I can change it at any time. I also can change the font size here, although I could also change it on the computer itself. On a Torah text, as this is, I can choose to show the aliyot or not. I have them on. And so what that means is here we have the parsha, the name of the Torah portion. And then if I scroll down, you will see in a little bit, here we go. These are in Hebrew, Sheni. So this is the second aliyah. So they're marked, but if I don't want that, I can turn that off. And the last thing is I can choose how I want it vocalized. This is a Torah text, so there's also trope. So right now we have the middle one, which is an aleph with the vowels. That's what we're viewing. I can choose to have only the letters and no vowels. And I also can have the letters, the vowels, and the trope. So this is purely up to me, and I can change at any time that I like. So that is the A Aleph button, which is a very, very important button, and it allows you to view the text as you wish. Now we get to the real cool part of Sefaria, and that is that all of our texts, because they're digitized, they're all linked together. So if I click on this verse, I now open the resource panel, the sidebar. Excuse me, on the website, we call it the sidebar because it's on the side. If you're on an app, on your phone, we call it the resource panel because it's on the bottom. So I kind of don't like to call a sidebar on the bottom. So, but it's all the same thing. So in the sidebar, we have all of the texts in our library that are connected to this verse. This means all of our commentaries, any place that the Talmud quotes this text, or the Midrash quotes this verse, or halakha, or any of our categories. And so I'm going to start with a commentary. I'm going to click here on commentary. And the first four commentaries are the four that we think are most used: Rashi, Ibn Ezra, Ramban, and Sforno. And after that, we have all of our commentaries in alphabetical order. And you can see that we have a very, very long list of commentaries. You will also notice that to the right, we have the letters EN, which signify that this commentary, this text, is available with a full English translation. So we have Ibn Ezra, you'll notice, but that is not translated. Now, a section might be translated because somebody might have just translated one paragraph, but we don't have a full translation. So if you're interested only in English translations, you can skim down, and this way you don't have to click into something that is not going to be useful to you. This is also available now as a new feature on the app. So that's brand new on the app. We didn't used to have it, and now we do. In the parentheses, this tells me how many comments he made on this text. So Rashi made 2, Ibn Ezra made 1. And if I go down even further, this is a very popular verse, but you can see that here we have some texts that are in gray. The gray indicates that we have that text, but there was no comment on this verse. So this way you don't think that we just didn't have it in our library. You know that it's there, but the author had nothing to say on this particular verse. I'm going to click on Rashi, and here are our 2 comments that Rashi made. This is not in the full text mode. This is in English, and if you click on the aleph in the top right, it will turn it into Hebrew. And I could go back and say, okay, now I'd like to look at Ramban, and I click on Ramban, and now I see his 2. You'll notice that this second one is not translated, it's only in Hebrew, but this top one is in English. And if I want to go back without doing the back button, I have a tab on the top, so I can go Rashi, Ramban, Ramban, Rashi. And if I did more, I would have more and more and more tabs. Let's stick with Rashi for a minute. And now I want to open the Rashi in full screen. I want to see it in the same way with all of the options that I have here. So I'm going to click down and click on Open. And now I have the 2 texts side by side. I have the Torah text on the left, and on the right, this is the second comment that Rashi made. And it's in the full form. I see the first one, and here I am at the second one, and I could keep going. And I have all of the options of how I want to view it. I have my A aleph button. I could close any of these windows with an X. So now I can study the Torah text, the Rashi text, but if I click on Rashi, I get another one. Now on the app, just due to size, that kind of makes sense. On the phone, I can only do 1 at a time. But on the screen, on the laptop or computer, or a smart board, I am only limited by the size of my screen. I can just keep going. So if we look at this text, was that the one we were looking at? Yeah, so we see at the bottom here, Seder Olam, we see that he quoted something. Oh, this isn't the one I wanted. I think it jumped. We'll go back. I wanted this one. Okay, so on this one, we see that Rashi quoted the Midrash, and you can see it on the side as a connection. So I could click on commentaries. These are commentaries on Rashi, super commentaries. We don't have as many of those in English, but I could open one of those. I also can open the Midrash, and now Midrash Tanchuma, and you can see that Rashi quoted Midrash Tanchuma, and now sometimes he might have just quoted a little bit. I want to see the full text. So here I have the full text, but as you know from before, it's not in its full form. I click on Open, and now I have the full version of the Midrash Tanchuma, the Rashi, and the Torah text. And I can keep going and keep going. So that is really the bread and butter of what Sefaria is all about, and how wonderful it is to have these texts connected, and so that you can find these texts. I want to show you a different way to open a text that I know what I'm looking for. We're going to first talk about when I know what I'm looking for, and then after the break with questions, we're going to talk about how do I find texts that I might not even know that I want. So the way we did this now, just to review, is we typed it in the search bar. I also could have typed the name of the parsha. I could have written Toldot, and it would have taken me to the beginning also. Another important button on the site that is on every single page of the site is to the left of the search bar, these 3 horizontal lines, which are called a hamburger. And the hamburger takes you to the library page. Anytime you're somewhere deep in something and you want to go back to the library page, you click on the hamburger. And on the library page is another way to navigate a text. So let's say that I would like to open up the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. So on the top here, I have all of the categories. And if I click more, then I really have all of the categories. All of our texts are sitting in one of these categories. So Pirkei Avot is in Mishnah, so I click on Mishnah, and this is the table of contents for the Mishnah, and I scroll down, I find Pirkei Avot, I click on it, and here I am on Pirkei Avot chapter 4, and I said that I wanted 1. So here is another important place on the Sefaria screen, which is on every single web page, and this is where the table of contents lies for this particular book. So this top bar is called the header. So we've already seen in the header the A Aleph. The X is how we get out of anything. And in the middle, we have the name of the work. And if I click on it, I open up the table of contents for this book, for Pirkei Avot. It gives me a lot of information and it helps me with navigation. So it first tells me what category it's in, the name of the book. I'm in chapter 4. For most texts, we have a short explanation of the text. So if you want to know what it is, we have some information, including the licensing information here for the text. And then we have the chapters. So this is a pretty short book, but we have things that are divided into hundreds of chapters or seifim, or however it's categorized. And this is a great way to navigate. So I'm going to click on one, and it will take me to the first chapter. If I were in the Torah, in the first 5 books, besides having the chapters, it also would give me the Torah portions, the parshiot, and I would click on, actually I'll do that in a minute, so I'll show you because that's a good way to navigate as well. So here I am at the first, that I'm in the first chapter, the first Mishnah of Pirkei Avot. Let me go back. I'll show you how I can open to, by just putting in the name of the parsha. I'm going to put in Toldot and just click on it and it opens to Toldot. But let's look at the table of contents here, clicking on the name in the header. And then I have parsha. And here I could navigate any of the books of this is Bereshit of Genesis. I can go to any, let's go back to Toldot. And now I click on it and then I have the aliyot. So if I want to go to the 6th aliyah of Parshat Toldot, I do that through the top table of contents. And there I am. So that is how we find a text that we know what we're looking for. I'm going to stop the share for a minute and ask Lizzie to see if we have any questions and see if I can answer some questions just on the part that we've done so far.
All right, so I believe you answered this question in terms of how we find when and where commentaries were written, but I was wondering, is there a way to locate that information while you have the sidebar up? Can you see when and where that commentary was written?
Yes, so let me, I'm going to share my screen. It was just nice to have a glimpse for a second, so thank you. Am I in the right place, Lizzie?
Yes.
Okay, so if I open the sidebar, one of the places on the sidebar there's lots of stuff. We're going to go over some of this. About. If I click on about, now I have about the book. So if it's a commentary, whatever book you're in, and information about the versions that we have. And actually, this is brand new. If one on some of the texts, if you wanted to buy it, there's a link that will take you to the publisher's website. Only for a few of our texts, that's very new. But the about section, or also, so that's while you're right in it. So if I were in, let me show you something that maybe, let's take a less usual, maybe you're not as familiar with commentary. So we can do it. And again, if it's always, the sidebar is always related to the text immediately to its left. So here we have Chizkuni, and I might say, I'd like to know who is Chizkuni. And there it is right there, right when I'm right in the book. I don't have to go out anywhere. And then I have something about him. Okay. Another question?
Wonderful. And then there's another question in the chat. So commentaries are for particular lines, not the whole portion?
So you could go to the whole portion. I'm going to go back to the library page. I'm going to open up the Tanakh. Let's go to Genesis, let's say. And I click on the table of contents, and you can see that there's a commentary. There was chapter, parsha, commentary. And this tells me all of the commentaries that we have on this book. So this book was Genesis. Here are all of the commentaries. And so I can click on one. And now I'm going to it in its full form. So now it's not connected to the text. I'm just looking at the commentary. And but when I click on it, so it's going to give me on the side, one of the connections is going to be the Genesis, that it's talking about. And he must have somewhere in here mentioned this verse in Jeremiah. So that's there for you. And he also, we can see right away that he talks about a midrash, and here's the midrash. So yes, you can find the book on its own. You can find it through the way I just showed you. You can also find, so that would be the best way to find it. Then you have the whole book.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thanks. You're showing us a lot of the browsing capability, some search for browsing, but I'm just curious about the search. Let's say, for example, if I wanted, so within the Torah, there's a distinction between the people hearing God and listening to God. Can I type in listen to God and find out the citations where that is and hear God? Is it that detailed? I mean, it's really incredible what this is. This is a huge project.
It is a huge project. And I also just have to say that it's a huge project with an amazing, yet quite small engineering team. And they are an outstanding group of people, which of course I'm not part of that part. And what they do with really a small team is amazing. When you think of, we're all very spoiled. We think of search like Google.
Yeah.
And if you think about how many people they have working on it, it's really different. So you're not going to be able to put in like thematically like that of a search, but you can just search in the search bar. You could search for a word, let's say, in Hebrew or in English. If you want the word listen, you put it. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit
But
later.
how do you narrow it to just for example, the 5 books of Moses?
Yeah. Okay, so we're going above what we're doing. Don't tell on me that I'm giving you a wider introduction, but I'm just going to have to talk fast, and we might have to go over. So here I have all of the texts that have the word listen. Again, this is in English, but whatever.
Sure.
That's a lot of them. I can filter over here, and I'm going to do it really quickly because this really is beyond the scope.
Yeah.
I can click on Tanakh. When I click on it, it clicks all of the books on the side.
Sure.
I click again, it leaves them open but not clicked. So I can just click, I want to know listen in Kings, and then, well, I don't know why it didn't come up right now, but it would. They would be there. That's weird. Okay, but oh, there we go. Okay.
It should be behind the scrolling down. Yeah.
Yeah, so there they are. And then you can click on any of these and you can go to them in full text and blah, blah, blah. So yes, you can, but we do have FAQs on search, and you can email me at hello@Sefaria if you have more, but it's really kind of not in the scope of this.
I got it.
So I'm going to move on if that's okay.
But maybe a last question that I think is in the scope. Like, let's say I see this and I like it.
Yes.
How do I print it quickly? How do I print it so that it stays in its integrity?
So you can print it by, you can use your print, on your computer. You can use your print. Another thing you can do is save it. And this this is within the scope. So,
Yeah.
So if I have an account and I'm logged in, the star button up here will save it for me. And I save it. So I've now clicked it. Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
It doesn't show up, but it said that I did. We'll check on it.
Yeah.
And now if I go back here to my saved texts, oh, actually it didn't save it, but okay. Of course it's not doing it because I'm doing a webinar right now. But
No problem. I'm totally impressed with everything, so it doesn't matter what you say.
If I click on history, I will see the places I've been. This is going to load slowly. Also, this is just because I have a long list of history, but it would also give me where I've been, and you'll see where you've been in the last while. But you can save them that way. You can put them on source sheets. and you can print them out. You can copy and paste it. There's a lot of things you can do. We also have a FAQ about printing. So I am going to move on because, oh, there we go. Here's our history. You can see all the places that I've been. It tells you when I've been there.
Yep.
So you could go back like, oh, I closed it. Now I can't find it. You can find it in your history, but this is only if you are logged into the site. And if you are logged in, and also if you're logged in on your app, it will sync between the two. So you could be in the days when we were, out on the bus and doing all these things and learning, and I did it on my phone, and then I come home and I'm in front of my computer, it's going to sync.
Sure.
But you need to have an account for that, which I'll talk at the end. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So we were talking about looking for texts when we know what we're looking for. Let's talk about, I don't know so much what I'm looking for. I know that I'd like to find, let's think about, Hanukkah is coming. I would like to find some relevant text for Hanukkah. I'd like to find the core texts of Hanukkah. Maybe I'm teaching a class. Maybe I'm, whatever. Maybe my screen is frozen. Oh, there we go. Okay. So let's say I'd like to see what there is. So I'm going to type Hanukkah. It's going to handle all of my divergent spelling kinds of things. Here we go, Hanukkah. Before I click on what I'm going to click on, I'd like to show you some other icons that help you to navigate our site. So if it has, in the drop-down menu, if it has a book icon in front of it, it means it's a book. And here's a book called Hanukkah Torah. That might be what I wanted to open. I could click on it. If it has a quill, that means this is an author. And his name is spelled similarly to Hanukkah, and they might have thought that I misspelled. I could click on that and go to his author page, which will tell me something about him and will also list all of the books that we have of his on Sefaria, and I can click on them and go there. But what I want to look at right now is the ones with a hashtag. If it has a hashtag before it, it's topics page. We have about 10,000 topics pages. I'll show you what they are. This is the Hanukkah topics page. So it starts with the name of what it is. And here's the category. Not for all of them, but for probably most of the ones that you're going to want to look at, because as I said, we have about 10,000 of them. And we're going to be building this up more. We have a short description of what it is for somebody who doesn't know what Hanukkah is. That would be there for them. Then we have a list of sources and sheets. So the sources, how do we get these sources? This is a little bit weird because here we have Leviticus for Hanukkah, and Hanukkah happened after it's not a biblical holiday. But the reason that, and sometimes it's not so obvious why it's there. Sometimes they come from either that somebody who made a sheet that's tagged Hanukkah used this. So you could see that this has something about 7 days and ordination, 7 days, whatever. You could see why it gets there maybe. Also, if I'm on the English site, it's going to prioritize texts with an English translation. If I'm on the Hebrew site, it won't care about that. It'll just give me text. So here we have the core texts of Hanukkah are in the Talmud in Masechet Shabbat, and here they are. So they're coming from, because these have been used on many, many sheets that are tagged Hanukkah. So the computer, our algorithms decide that this is a core Hanukkah text. We also use something called an encyclopedia called Aspeklaria, and we get some from there. If you're wondering how on earth did this get here, you can hover over these 3 dots to the right, and it says this source is connected to Hanukkah by sheets by Sefaria users. But other ones, they'll generally say sheets or Aspeklaria. Here is the star to the left. If I want to save this for later, maybe I'm looking through and I want to save it, I click on it, it will be in my saved. If I'm logged in, if I have an account, I'm logged in, it will save it for me. I can also filter it. So this is, it defaults to relevance. So the ones that are on more sheets or in Aspeklaria more are going to be on the top. But I might want to do it chronologically. Now in Hanukkah, I probably wouldn't, because those earlier texts aren't really going to be as related to Hanukkah. But maybe I'm doing something in Jewish law and I want to see how the law has progressed, starting from the Torah and how it goes through the Talmud and the codes. I can filter it chronologically. And this goes from the earliest texts to the later texts. So you can see how it just did that, but it will default to relevance. And you see that I also have a second search bar. So now let's say I would like to do another, I'd like Hanukkah, but I would like also the idea of light, perhaps. So I could type in light, and now it has selected things that have to do with lights, lighting Chanukiot, things like that. Another thing I could do, instead of that, I could do it by what type of book. So let's say I'm only interested in Talmud sources. So I type in Talmud, and now I have the Talmud sources about Shabbat, and it gets rid of all of those other things that I have. So that's the sources. And then it also has sheets. We'll talk about sheets in a minute. Again, not how to make them, but about them. This is how I would find them. Here are sheets. It defaults to relevance. So, so here are all kinds of sheets that people have made about Hanukkah. And I could also do it by number of views if I want to see them from the most viewed, the most popular sheets to less, or I might be interested in newer ones because the newer ones are going to have fewer views most likely. So I might want to say, what are people writing recently? And so I can view it however I want. I also can do a secondary search. So I also can save a source sheet. So it all kind of goes the same way. So again, we have the topic, we have a little explanation, we have the sources, we have sheets, and over here on the right, we have related topics. So these are other topic sheets. So if I were to click something like Hanukkah menorah, it's going to be very related to Hanukkah, but I might say, we're talking about Hanukkah, now I'm interested in miracles. Now this won't be only Hanukkah miracles, this will be all miracles. And it's under the beliefs. It's all anything about miracles. I might be interested, but some of them are Hanukkah. I might be interested in something like that. So, and you can see how you can just discover, and you could really spend a lot of time instead of Netflix or whatever, you can spend a lot of time just discovering Torah. You can go see how many pathways you can go down, and you can really just keep going and discovering and discovering. I'm going to keep going back to the library page because there's so much on it. So I want to show it to you in stages. We've had the saved and the history. We've had the categories. Now I'm going to show you that another way to get to topics. And again, this is maybe I'm just saying, hey, I'd love to learn something and I don't really know what I want to learn. Let's look at the topics. So I can see topics. I can click more and have more. I can click all topics and get all of the topics, which is a lot. I have a search bar, so I could search in a second. These are kind of what's trending now. I could say, oh, you know what? We're in Genesis. Abraham is trending. I bet that would be exciting for him to know that in 2020, Abraham is trending on Sefaria. So I could go to his topics page and see sources and see sheets. And here on the people, it's interesting because we have the people we have related topics, and then we have related like children, and we have corresponded with and opposed and parent and relationships, and so much that you could do. You could be lost in the Avraham page for days and think how exciting that would be. So that's the topics page. You can get there also from the library page. And the last thing, because we're looking for text that we might want to learn, we have a calendar. And here we have some of the more common study calendars that people use. So we have the weekly Torah portion. This is another way you could just get immediately to there. We have the Haftorah. We have Daf Yomi. This also, again, is on the apps as well. So if you're out someplace and you got a little time and you want to study your Daf Yomi, you can go there right from the calendar. We have the 9 to 9 chapter a day of Tanakh. We have daily Mishnah. We have all these different calendars, and you also could play around with those. So I'm going to stop for a few more questions. I would actually prefer if they were in the chat box so that Lizzie can, because she knows what I'm covering next, so she can keep us more on target.
Yeah, I'm just saving a question that we had from the commentary section for the end so that we can loop back. Otherwise, there weren't other questions in the chat.
Great. So we've talked about sheets, And so now I would like to show you a sheet and talk a little bit about what they are and where you can find them, not how to make them, but where you can find them and what they are. So here is a Hanukkah sheet that we made. And so basically what a sheet is, it's not the source sheet that we think of, the piece of paper with just a bunch of sources on it. It can be that, but it really is a web page that allows you to put a whole variety of things on your sheet. So you can put sources from our library, outside texts, media, your own writing. And other benefits of them is they're dynamic. They can always be edited. If I decide I use this sheet and I want to change something on it, I want to add something, I can always go into the edit mode, add something. They can be collaborative. I can set it so that a bunch of people can add to it. They can be made public. They default to private, but if I want to, I can make it part of the Sefaria library, and it really becomes our library consists of our texts that we have put in and our user-generated source sheets. So here's an example. This one, we kind of call this a narrative source sheet. The idea being that if you look at this sheet, you could read through it on your own and you could have like a little Torah lesson. So in this one, we talked about candles, different kinds of candles. This part was put in as a comment. For those of you who are familiar with source sheets, I'll tell you what we used. This is a comment, as is this. It gives some questions. We can add media, pictures. I added something here from our library. And one of the great things about it, as opposed to a piece of paper, is that now I'm always linked into the library. So I gave just this part, but maybe I'm the reader and I'm interested in, I want to know more. I can click on it, and now on the side, I have it in the context, in its full form. So I have that verse, but I can scroll back and I can say, oh, this is in the 10 Commandments. I can see more of it. I can click on it and I can say, I'd like to read, before I go on with the sheet, I'd be interested to read a commentary, or I'd be interested in something else. So there's always room for more exploration and to go in deeper because we're not confined by a printed piece of paper. So there we have texts from our library, and then we have from Mishnah Torah. We can embed a video really easily. It takes 2 seconds. I can add a video that plays within there. And so this is one type of sheet. I want to show you again another type with media. This we did when we added Nechama Leibowitz's, she was the founder of the source sheet, for Gilyonot. We added them, the family wanted to add them to the Sefaria library. And we wanted to give people a little bit of background on Nechama Leibowitz. And so we made this sheet. This one doesn't have text. This has a picture, though, of the original Gilyonot. And also, this is her biographer who gave like an hour-long, YouTube webinar type thing on Nechama Leibowitz. You could watch it right in here. You just click on it. It plays right inside. And so that is something else that you can do. You also can put outside sources. This is a rabbi who makes some wonderful sheets. And he so he has our text, he has comments, and then he brought in as an outside text, poetry, whatever you want to add in. So how do you find these sheets in the library? So I'm going to go back to the library page, as I want to do. And I'm going to open up, I'm going to go to Talmud this time. So I'm going to click on Talmud. I'm going to go to Brachot. And I'm going to change, let's say I like to view in bilingual. I can do that. And I click on it, and in the sidebar, so we've already talked about all these things here, all of our categories. On the sidebar, we have sheets. And you'll see that in parentheses, it has 29. So there are 29 public sheets that use this text. And if I click on sheets, it will show me. Now, it always will show me my own first. I happen to right now be in our Sefaria education account. These are actually not public sheets. You can see the little lock on the side, but it always gives me mine first. So you wouldn't see that. But if I scroll down, now we see other people's sheets. It shows you how many people have viewed these sheets. If they've tagged them, it gives me a little bit more information about it. I can click any of the sheets. It's going to show me right away. It's going to go to the piece that comes from my original text. And I can scroll up and I can see what the person did, and I can decide if I'm interested in reading it or I'm not interested in reading it, and I can always close it. So in the sidebar, you see all of the public sheets that have used that piece of text that you're doing. So if you find something that's interesting, you wonder what people did with it or what you can learn with, you can do that. Underneath it is what used to be our newest feature. Now it's not. It's called web pages. We have a linker, which I'm not going to explain all of the engineering behind it, partly because that's not my specialty, but people who have websites, blogs, Torah that's online, they can link to our site by putting a piece of code into their website. And anytime that they write a citation in a certain way, it links to Sefaria. We also have something that goes the other way. So now I'm on the piece of text and I'd like to see which people linked to Sefaria on this piece. So you can see that there are 202 web pages because this is a quite popular piece of text. It's the first Mishnah in the Talmud. And you can see this list is getting longer and longer. We're doing a lot of outreach to different organizations to add our linker. And so now we have all kinds of things for all kinds of people. So My Jewish Learning is a wonderful introductory website. They use our linker. They're one of our first ones to use our linker. We have Hebrew sites, not as many. We have this one, Sinai. We have YU Torah Online. We have the Jewish Theological Seminary, all kind. And of course, you already probably know that in parentheses, it tells us how many we have. I'm going to show you one. This one is called Torah in Motion. This is a great guy who lives in Toronto, Rabbi Jay Kelman. And you can see all of the different pieces that he wrote that have this text on it. I'm going to go to this one because I have to say I've done this before. And I know that this is a really great piece that he wrote on this, on Brachot 2. And you can see how he's linked. So on his site, it looks this way. If I click on it, there's my text, which is wonderful for his side, for his readers, because you read it and he quotes a little piece and then you can see the whole thing. You can also go to the full version. You can go to Sefaria, and he has all of these here. But also, I could be a Sefaria reader, and I could say, here's the first Mishnah. Like, I need somebody to explain it to me a little bit more, and I can use the web pages. So that is a great feature. That's web pages. Topics we've talked about before. Also, anytime you have a text, you can click on topics, and it will show you there's 6 topics that are connected to this, that have this text in that, like how I showed you the line of sources. So it has 6 of them. You could go there. This is our newest feature. So for everybody who knew everything so far, this is why you came. It's called Chavruta. It is super cool. I can't show you the whole thing because it needs 2 people, but let's say I would like to study this. I have a study partner, a Chavruta, and I would like to study this together, and we would like to video chat while we study this. I click on Chavruta. This is so super easy. I copy this link. I send it to my Chavruta. So I WhatsApp, I text it, however it is that we talk to each other, and I start the call. And there I am. I'm there. My text is open, and I'm waiting for my Chavruta. And when when my partner clicks on the link that I sent, then my partner's picture comes up here, and we can talk to each other, and we can study the text. We each have it in our own, like if I move mine, it does not move my partner's, but that's also very nice because maybe while I'm studying it, I want to go look at one commentary, and I might say to my partner, I'm going to go look at this. Why don't you go look at that? We'll report back. So we each have our own, but we would be able to, as I said, we would have me up here and my partner down here, and we would talk to each other, And this is super new and very, very fun. We're recommending, we're sending out, maybe we already got our email on Thanksgiving. We're also thinking that this is nice this year if you're not going to be able to be with children and grandchildren. This is a great intergenerational way to do some studying together, study something. Doesn't even have to be all that deep, tell stories, and connect that way. To get out of it, you just close it, you just X out. So, so that is something that we're very, very excited about. I want to go back to where we were. Yeah, so those actually were what I wanted to show you in the sidebar. So how you find the sheets, the web pages, Chavruta. Questions?
We are all caught up on questions in the chat.
Wow. All right. Okay, so we're now at our last section, although I do have, if we have time, I want to show you another fun thing at the very, very end, so hang in there. So now I want to talk a little bit about, I've mentioned a few times about making an account. So, the way to make an account is on the login page, you put in an email address, you make a password, you're done. But why would you need to do it? So much of what I showed you today already, you do not need an account for. You can read everything in our library, just so many things that you can do. But there are several important things. If you want all of the features, you make an account. You can create source sheets with an account. You have to have an account to have source sheets. You can track your learning with our Torah tracker. So if I'm on this is called the profile page in the top right, I have, this is a group account, a Sefaria account. So we have our Sefaria logo, but on my own private account, I have a photo. If I didn't have the photo, it would have my initials. I click on it. This is called the profile page. I can edit the profile, say something about me. It has all of my sheets. We have a ridiculous amount of sheets, but we have this Torah tracker here, and I can click on it, and it'll also probably take a second to open, also because I'm on Zoom, but it will tell me a little bit about my history, about what types of texts I open. So this is something, I'm not going to wait it out, but you can do it on yours at home. But this is something only if you are signed in. You can save your texts, which we talked about with that star button. Okay, I'm giving up on this for right now. So you can save your text, and you can view your history if you are logged in. You can take notes alongside. So if I'm on, just open up anything, and in the sidebar, it says notes. Oh, actually, I've written probably a sample note here. You can tell I have a note because there's a one in these are private just to me. These don't go out to the library. It's just for me and my account. I can click on it, and I see that I wrote a note to myself. This is where I would write a new note. I can write more than one note on this. I can write something I learned now. I can write something I learned the next time I'm studying. Notes is something you can only do if you have an account. And the last thing to point out if you have an account is Chavruta. So what I just showed you with the video chatting and learning, you have to have an account in order to do that. I'd like to show you, if you click on, again, from any place on the site, if you click the Sefaria in the middle with the logo, you go to our homepage. This is different than the library page. This is also will look like this if you have an account and if you are logged in. It will show me some popular sheets. It shows me some things trending. I might want to look at some of the things there. On the side, it gives me a lot of information. I have, this is the same thing as the library page. I can make a sheet from here. Other things that we have here is we have a newsletter. If you'd like to sign up for a newsletter, we would love that. You sign up here, and we send out usually around holiday times, also updates on either if we've gotten some great new texts or if we have some new features. This is where you keep up with all things Sefaria. You also can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you click on any of those, we have active social media. Also, we have, for educators, we have a Teach with Sefaria page. If I click here, it takes me to a special page for educators. Here is a different newsletter. This is the educator newsletter. So even if you signed up for the other one, you might also want to get the educator newsletter, which has materials that are great for educators. Another thing I want to point out on the educator page is we have a free online training course that you do at your own pace. This is for educators. It's looking at Sefaria through the lens of pedagogy, education, it's training, it's thinking. And if you do the course with the assignments, we certify you as a certified Sefaria educator. We have more information here for educators, upcoming webinars, all kinds of things. So that is something that you might want to look at if you are an educator. Also on the side, we have links to our apps. We have a free Android app, iOS app, so the Play Store, the App Store, wherever you get your apps, that's where you would find it. I want to also point out that we are a nonprofit and we rely on the support of foundations and individual donors. We have about 3 different ways to make types of donations. You would do it all through Make a Donation. We have a one-time donation. We have a sustainer program where you can commit to whatever amount you want on a monthly basis to have a set donation. And we also have a day sponsor, which today we do have a day sponsor, so I can show you. If you look on the library page, you might have noticed today's learning is sponsored by Andrew and Monique Rexschaffen in honor of their children. It could be in honor of people, it can be in memory of somebody. It's a great way to commemorate a yard site. So you also can see if you go to this day sponsor button, if you can't find it, just email me at hello@sefaria.org. And we'll get you to the right place who can check if your day is available, help you write the dedication that you want. I will take questions and then I want to show you one more fun thing.
So one question from the chat, how do you set up an account?
Okay, so I'm going to log out because I'm already logged in. So if I log out, so you would see the library like this. On the top right, it says log in or sign up. By the way, here's also how you could, if you're logged out, this is a nice easy way. If you wanted to change from the Hebrew or the English site, you could do that. If I click sign up, I put an email address, password, my first name, my last name. You check if you're an educator, you check that you're not a robot, and you sign up. Pretty fast.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to log back in on a different account. But actually the thing I want to show you is actually not even, I don't need to be logged in for, but I'll do it anyway. Okay. Here we are, back logged in. You know that you're logged in, by the way, if you see your icon or your initials in where the profile button is in the top right. That's how you would know that you are logged in. I'd like to show you our visualizations. This is what our engineers do when they're feeling very creative and have some time to think, because they think a lot about what is the benefit of having digitized text. What can you do with it that you can't do in a book? And we have these visualizations, and I'm going to show you our most popular, probably our first visualization. I'm going to click on it here. You can play around. There are other ones as well. So this one, what they did was they started with linking Tanakh and Talmud, seeing the connections between the two. Every strand is another connection. So on the top, we have the Bible, the Tanakh. We have blue is Torah, orange is Nevi'im, is prophets, and green is Ketuvim, writings. And on the bottom, we have all of the Talmud, each of the tractates of the Talmud. So I can, first of all, I can see, so every time that the Talmud quotes the Torah or the Tanakh, there is a line. So first looking at it, you get an idea of all of the interaction, all these texts talking to each other. You see a great reliance on Torah text because there's so many more lines there. But what I also can do is I can say, okay, I'm interested in one particular tractate. Let's pick, here I'm going to pick Pesachim. So it's going to be about Pesach. I'm going to click on that. And now I have Pesachim on the bottom. Oh, I didn't mean to pick just Leviticus. I wanted to pick, I didn't want to do that. Let me go back. I wanted to, how come I did that? I want to pick it with everything. Okay, there we go. So now I'm looking at the whole tractate of Psachim. So I'm thinking, what do you think would be, they would be quoting a lot of? Well, Exodus for sure, because there's going to be things having to do with Pesach, Exodus. But look at all these other places that are being quoted. And so it kind of gives me a visual that I would never see otherwise of how these texts are related. We also have other ones, Talmud and Mishnah Torah, Talmud and Shulchan Aruch. And again, this really gives you this idea that all of Jewish literature is one big conversation that's been going on for thousands of years between the authors of all of these books. If I click on any one of these, you can see it popped up what it is. If I were to click on it, it would take me right into the library and show me the text, and I could see how they were connected. So anyway, they're always coming up with new things. There's always something exciting. So we invite you to try everything. Don't hesitate to ask questions. I will never say, but I explained that to you, because of course it takes so many times before you get really adept. I've been working at Sefaria for 4 years, so I have a little edge on you, but I'm happy to answer your questions. I get to them within 24 hours for the most part. So play with it, try it, enjoy.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I think we'll stay around for that one other question about commentary and any further questions. I also want to remind everyone we have a Siyum, a celebration of completion for Tractate Eruvin, and that will be this Sunday on Facebook. So I'm going to paste that here. It's at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and we have Sarah Wachenfeld from our team, as well as another Pardes educator who will be doing the Siyum.
And Sarah,
and the email address
is an amazing teacher. So if you haven't had the opportunity to learn with Sarah, it's, even if you haven't studied Eruvin, I would say it's worth it.
Absolutely. So thank you all. Should we circle back to that question?
Yes.
All right. And feel free to stick around if you'd like. Thank you all so much. And all right, so the question was, what if you would like to see commentary for a Torah portion, like the portion Toldot, but not just a verse, not the whole of Genesis?
Okay, so I know who asked that question because we've been writing. So why don't you unmute yourself? And I guess I'm not exactly getting exactly what you want. I mean, you can go into any individual commentator, like I showed you. You could go into Rashi. You could start at the beginning of Toldot and go all the way through. You could, if you wanted to, put another one next to it. I mean, eventually you're going to run out of space. Also, if you have, let's say I have Rashi up and I have on the other side, I have the text. As I scroll, it's going to scroll with you. So you could go that way. Does that help? Am I getting the question?
Okay, I
feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah, I'll practice it, and then I'll find out if I have another question. I'll ask you. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? We were having a discussion among our staff. You know, we're tech people, and putting a library online. We were saying amongst ourselves, our libraries probably, you know, like people think like we're anti-book. And if you probably looked in all of our homes, I don't happen to be in front of my library today, but I love, Michael, that you are in front of yours, because that's a typical Sefaria user, is somebody who has a wonderful library and also likes to use Sefaria. One of the things, since you're all kind of in my age group, which is lovely for me, since Liz, you don't listen, but everybody I work with is in her age group. But when we made Aliyah and we had a humongous library and we had to decide what wasn't coming with us, my husband would keep asking me, does Sefaria have this? Does Sefaria have that? It helped us a lot when it came to downside. It was a little bit easier to let go of some of them when we knew that there's always Sefaria. But there's a great place for books. So you're among book lovers, text lovers, and there's always a time when You just need to have that on your phone or on your computer. And also all these connections are wonderful. So welcome. And I hope I hear from all of you. And if there's anything we can do, you just let us know.